At one time, I was an adorable little kid. I was boisterous and fun-loving and very, very stubborn. You can ask my parents. They used to put me in timeout sometimes, and they'd come upstairs after however long it was, and I'd just be sitting there with my arms crossed like this, and they'd say, "Are you ready to come down?" And I'd be missing my toys or games or whatever, or the family, and I'd say no, just out of spite, no good reason, you know? And I think we see that kind of happening today in Exodus chapter 9. So today we hear about the Egyptians who have a plague of hail, and we see that Pharaoh and his servant's stubbornness is actually something that really is detrimental to their own well-being. And I think that's a really good message for us. What happens is God says that he's going to strike down the Egyptians with hail, and then he says to the Egyptians and their servants and everyone that they should move everything indoors under shelter so that it's not all destroyed. So basically, he allows them to have the free choice to be able to save their cattle, and the only reason that they have for not obeying God here, or for the destruction of their own land, is their own stubbornness, right? They are the reasons alone that their cattle and land are destroyed, because they didn't bring everything in like God commanded them to. And I think it's the same for us a lot. A lot of us really can doubt the Lord's movement in little things and just be stubborn and resistant to his will in small things, especially small sins. We believe, I know better, or that the Lord doesn't really care about this. And maybe we view sin as breaking of a speeding law, you know, we're speeding. But it's not breaking of a law like that. It's breaking of a heart. And it's not only breaking of God's heart, but it's actually disordering ourselves and making our own lives more difficult. I had an old spiritual director who's amazing, and he described our walk in lives as like a path, right? And when we're born, that path it's maybe very crooked depending on our family situation and our upbringing and things like that, things that are out of our control. But it's mostly straight. And what happens when we sin is the path becomes more crooked. It takes sharper turns, goes through deeper valleys and higher mountains, and it makes it more difficult for us to walk it. Now, God, he always makes a path for us through to himself, no matter what sin it is that we find ourselves in. But our sin doesn't only hurt our relationship with him, but it also makes our own lives more difficult. When we get stuck in sin patterns, we actually cannot progress as far in our spiritual journey, in our walk toward happiness, toward love, toward well-being. I think sometimes there's this perspective in especially the Catholic world that little sins don't matter, or even big sins, you know, we can just go to confession, you know? When a temptation arises, it's well, I mean, is it really that big of a deal? Because, you know, the church I'm going to tomorrow, they offer confessions at 10 a.m. And that's thinking of sin much too small. And if we look here in the plagues, right, the plagues get more and more intense, and every single time the Egyptians have a time to repent. And I know a lot of you have probably heard this analogy of sin before with us being frog in water, and the water's not boiling at first, but slowly the temperature gets turned and up and up and up and up, and eventually it's boiling and the frog dies. The devil just tempts us in small ways, but over a large period of time, that temptation is extremely detrimental. And we're tying it into that path analogy, it really makes our path convoluted and very difficult to walk and traverse. Just today's challenge, just pray to the Lord and ask him just for a continued disposition toward hating sin in the way that he desires us to, and just embracing his love always, not just when it's convenient, not just when we want to, but always. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day.